Hi,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, and you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. This will be fun to have go up on our YouTube channel. We've been doing a series of conversations, sort of early season conversations with skaters.
Perfect.
Hey. So you just came back pretty recently from US Classic. Congratulations on the medal. How
Thank you.
was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a unique one. I think that this is the first year that I've actually felt prepared, oddly enough, with all these things going on in my life. But the first year that I felt fully prepared going into my first event and really strategizing around the competitions instead of just training for sakes of training and then having a competition come up, really working backwards from each competition and competing with intention rather than just out of a whimsical need to is something I'm trying this year. So it's really nice to feel prepared and confident going into this event and the previous champs camp we had before that.
Did you get to choose, which challenger that you were going to this year or, think about the scheduling of the events through the fall that way?
Yeah, luckily I've been able to choose about everything. So it's been nice having that ability to choose a competition right by school for me. So I'm very fortunate to be in that position.
Yeah, definitely. You had to skate right after, Ilya landed the quad axel in the free skate. Were you able to, set that aside and go focus on your own performance?
Yeah, quite honestly, I didn't even realize he had landed the axle. I was kind of just so focused on myself, and that's a great accomplishment. But honestly, I was just there to do my own job and to focus on me. So it was nice that I was able to bring it back to somewhat of what I was planning on doing and
Mhm.
deliver two somewhat put together programs.
Yeah, I mean, for, um, this early in the season, I think both programs, really, were looking great, and you were looking very, prepared, like you were saying, very prepared for the season. Um, could you tell me a little bit about what your off season was like? I know you've got new coaches and some new training environments, but what were some of the highlights for you skating wise for the off season?
Yeah, definitely adjusting to new technique is a big highlight for me. I think skating wise, shifting my perspective to the macro and looking at these next 4 years rather than just season by season has been something that I've been adapting to. And obviously, new coaches, new environment, that's all part of the change. So I'm happy that I was able to adjust to California, to Irvine, and now coming to New York, having to adjust to here too. But I think it's good that I can adjust to both New York and Irvine because then once I go train back in Irvine, it'll be somewhat familiar to me. And then as I'm training here throughout the season, this will obviously become familiar. So getting familiar and comfortable in both these training locations, because that's going to be the norm for me over the next few years, is something that I'm happy that I'm adapting to well.
Yeah, it's nice for you to be able to take the next few seasons and know, that this will be the environment for a while. What were some of the things that you worked on, while you were in California over the summer?
I worked really hard on my my cardio. I think that that was a big thing for me was really trying to maximize my over the summer training because I knew once I got here to New York that this is not necessarily the most ideal training environment. So I was happy that I was able to really build a solid foundation over the summer and work I think harder than I have in previous summers to really try to not peak, but be in peak shape so that I can just maintain when I get here and then keep the cardio going so I'm not having to build up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Going back to last season, you finished fifth, on your first trip to Worlds and third in the
Mhm.
free skate. It was very exciting to see you do that well. What are you taking from your experiences last season coming into this year?
Yeah, overall that experience was I think the highlight of me really coming into my own skin and I like to define that moment as me coming into Camden 2.0. I really want to display the consistency that I've built and I think that moment just highlighted the fact that I can hang with some of the best in the world, and really using that to keep fueling me over these next few years to have more success like that and more consistent performances will ultimately be what's going to set me apart.
That's great. You were called up as a substitute with only a few days notice. Do you think that that sort of short period helped in terms of just go do what you need to do, or was that hard to get into the competition mindset that quickly?
Yeah, I think probably the former, of being that it was just I didn't really have a chance to think, and also I had been developing the programs to the point that I delivered at Worlds, leading into that competition, despite being an alternate, because I knew how important it was to just be ready just in case anything happens. So it was nice that it was a shock mentally, but physically my body knew that I was ready to do it.
Totally. Um, what's it been like working with Alex Johnson as your coach and as a choreographer? How does his approach, I guess, differ from or complement what you worked on with Ruff?
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Alex because he went through the same thing I'm going through, of trying to compete at the highest level while still managing a full course load. And even he was doing an internship as well over the summer. So he definitely is sharing some of the experiences that I am going through right now. So it's really nice to have him on site here to know a little bit of what I'm going through, but still be able to be that force that's pushing me through a program every day or pushing me outside my comfort zone. So it's really nice to have Alex here. I think also it's kind of cool having someone that was a competitor of mine and a peer of mine become a coach to me. And while that is takes a little bit of defining new boundaries, it still is, it's an awesome feeling to know that at the end of the day, he really cares about me as a person and just wants the best for me.
That's great. And so he did your short program, if I'm right.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your process of working on that program, how you chose that music? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a program I've always wanted to skate to for a while. I really loved that piece of music, but I never really felt ready to do it yet. And I felt that that iteration of Sinatra was kind of a parallel of my life moving to New York City. So I was like, I might as well do it. And the way Alex skates to it is beautiful. And I really wanted to embody some of the characteristics that he had in his skating. And although I will say I'm not at the point that Alex is at yet, I hope one day I can really take some of the things that he's done in his career and his artistry and implement that in my own, because he's one of the most beautiful skaters I've ever seen. So definitely a challenging process to work with him, considering he just moves in a way that I think is otherworldly and inhuman. Like, it's very difficult to replicate what he's doing, but it's nice that we can find a common ground between our artistries and try to create something new.
Yeah, and I really liked that program. I mean, you can tell that it's something that you're going to keep growing into over the season. But it's nice to see a Sinatra program that's not it's not a medley and doesn't feel as much like a sort of a caricature like of a Sinatra program, but something that you're very much focused on and embodying that piece of music.
Yeah.
And for your free skate, this is, I believe, your second program that you've done to a Piazzolla tango, sort of. And so, what made you want to come back to the style? Do you see it as coming back to the style or something new? And is it different as a program, or maybe you're different as a skater from when you did the Oblivion program a few seasons ago?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really nice connection you made there. And not many people have realized that, but yeah, Piazzolla is one of my favorite artists and composers. So I always feel like some innate attraction towards this style of music. And I think with all these changes in my life, I wanted to have something that would ground me and keep me tied to something I'm a little more comfortable with, while still having Shaylin Bourne choreograph the program, which she pushes me to parts of myself and parts of my blade that I would never have gone to alone. So it still is just as challenging as if it was a music that was so out of my realm. So it's really cool that I can have this juxtaposition of both something comforting, but also something extremely challenging to me. And I, I don't know why I picked it, honestly. I think it was just something that I was listening to, and I just kept coming back to this piece, and I really am I'm starting to live life like I might as well do it now because I know my time as a skater is limited. So
Mm.
I'd rather skate to something and not have a regret about never skating to it. So I think that's why I chose it.
Yeah, and it's such a great piece of music, and even though it's been used by a lot of skaters, it's something that, it stands up to that use. You can find new things with it, and your version will be different than what others have done before with it.
Right.
Wanted to ask you about what you're working on sort of from a technical perspective at this point. You've got a very nice quad toe. Are you working on other quads or other ways to increase your technical difficulty?
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely again looking at the macro and trying not to peak too soon in these next 4 years and really developing a sound technique for the other quads that I'm
Mhm.
working on. So it's a process and it's going to take a few years, but I know that a season in the season 3 years from now is far more important than the season now. And it's more important to really develop the correct technique so that I can land it 9 times out of 10 or 10 out of 10 times rather than having a inconsistent extra quad. So to me, again taking this new approach and kind of really looking at these next 4 years about how we're going to add in another quad or two more quads year by year and how we're going to develop the technical over the next 4 years. So we're working on it, and there's a lot of things that I think I need to continue to work on and make some technique become some muscle memory for me, and then we can really start to get those consistent quads.
Yeah, that sounds like a very smart approach. And yeah, having that patience with it, hopefully that means that, yeah, you develop that solid background of the technique and don't risk as many injuries and all of that.
Yeah.
So your life in New York now, there's always so much going on in New York. What are some of the things that you've been doing for fun or to take advantage of everything that's around you? And I guess, do you find it then, challenging to also stay focused on, you've got skating, you've got school, and then there's also the whole city out there.
Yeah, the first week I got here, I definitely had some fun with going to the US Open and New York Fashion Week. So I attended some events like that. But as soon as school started, I really didn't have the opportunity to go out and do things as much. So it's kind of nice being in the city, but also on the Upper West Side where it's so far from what's happening down in Midtown and Soho area. That kind of creates a barrier for me to after class. I can't I mean, it's just so much of a trek to go down to Midtown that I wouldn't want to leave my dorm at that point, and then I end up just sticking around and studying. So it's it's nice being in the city, and I could see how it could be a distraction for some people. But honestly, with me and how I am, I feel like I really need to utilize the city more and push myself outside that comfort zone to just go and have fun or go to a nice dinner or go sit at a coffee shop rather than just sitting in my room or sitting in a library. So I'd like to engage more with the city and see all the different little neighborhoods of New York City and just explore because I mean this is one of the greatest cities on earth, if not the greatest city, and there's so much nuance to the different communities here that I'd love to just learn about it all.
Yeah, and hopefully then that becomes something that is a good balance that, if skating is, get to a point where it feels, a little tiring or a little bit of, just doing the same thing every day, then you have that as something that can bring new experiences into
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah, I think there's a realization that I've come to that it's not all the time that you have to sacrifice one thing for the other. And by no means do I feel like I need to sacrifice my education for skating or my ability to go sit in a coffee shop and study for skating. So, really taking time for myself and allowing all these different areas of my life to create my identity is something that I'm happy that I'm growing into.
Definitely. And I've heard a number of skaters reflecting on their careers and say, oh, the point where I started, trying to live more as a whole human being was also when my skating got better. And so I think that's something that, especially as you've been at the senior level for a while, you've been doing this for a while, having that expansion hopefully will be a good experience for you.
Yeah, for sure.
How are your classes so far?
Very difficult. I think that, not that I overestimated, but I think I put a lot on my plate before really thinking about what I'd have to go through. And I obviously don't have any regrets and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, but it is a lot of work. And I find that even during competitions like US Classic, when I'm not on the ice doing a warm up or um, getting ready to compete, I'm in my room studying or reading some literature for my class that I have to be at on Wednesday after I compete. Like there's just so many different there's different things that that just go into the whole education process, from reading to collaborating with classmates, TAs, professors, that it's not as binary as just, okay, you go to class, you do your homework and you're done. There's always work to be done. And it's a shock. And I'm happy that I'm doing it, but definitely it's a level of difficulty I've never really encountered before.
Yeah. Has it been a few years for you since you were in like a full-time education setting?
Yeah, it's been quite a while now. I want to say 3 or 4 years since I've gone full time to school. And even with that, I reflect on the full time course load I was taking back at University of Colorado,
Mm.
and that workload is just nothing in comparison to what I am going through now today, from reading about Antony and Cleopatra, the famous play by Shakespeare, to again just having to go online and learning what this calc equation means. There's so many different areas that Columbia is teaching me in education that it feels really fulfilling. But again, it's a workload that I've never had to do before. So
Mhm.
it's both so inspiring and so cool, but at the same time terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for the competitions that you've got coming up, will you be able to align those with breaks during the semester and be able to sort of plan around the two schedules?
Yeah. With the Grand Prix, I definitely plan those around my schedules, being Canada right after midterms, and then Grand Prix Finland being during Thanksgiving break. So it's been nice that I was able to really plan around my school schedule so that I'm not missing as many classes.
Yeah, that's great. And so you're training at Chelsea Piers, is that right?
Yeah.
Right when you're there. Yeah, that's such a nice environment though. I think every time that I've been there, it's also been a very, very crowded rink. Are there
That's
other yeah. Are there other senior level competitors that are training there at the moment?
No, I'm the
Yeah.
only one, but
Yeah.
it is nice having a lot of NYU skate a lot of students on the NYU figure skating team train there too. So a lot of them are around my age, and I've met some of them, and it's kind of nice having people, although they may not be training. It's nice that when I'm doing a program, they'll stand on the boards and just cheer me on. It kind of feels like that sense of community, and it really ties me back into what skating is, which is just one huge family.
Definitely. Great. Just last question, not necessarily skating related, but will you leave us with a recommendation, music, movie, book, or TV show, something that you've been enjoying recently that you'd recommend for us?
Okay, um, I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but Tamburlaine the Great. It's a play, and I had to read it for one of my classes. It's a tragedy about essentially the confinements that society puts you in versus what you view yourself as. And this, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but this guy Tamburlaine, this is obviously way many years ago, but
Mhm.
he is born as a shepherd, and he essentially believes that he's meant to be a king, a ruler, and he says, I'll show you with my actions. And it's a very interesting play, essentially showing that, I guess the term fake it until you make it is really present, because he entices people with the way he looks, the way he dresses, the way he speaks, and he's this beautiful I want to say like he wears all this makeup that really puts him out of the shepherd identity and into this ruler identity, and he becomes one of the greatest kings to ever rule. So if anyone is into plays
Yeah.
and literature, I would definitely say give that one a read. It really makes you think about whether or not Tamburlaine is necessarily great or if Tamburlaine is terrible.
Hmm.
There's a fine line between great and terrible.
That sounds really interesting. I had not heard of that play before, and I will look that up. And yeah, that'll be fun. Thank you for the recommendation.
90% of people watching will not want to read it, and I don't blame you also.
That's okay. I am enough of a nerd that I appreciate it, and I like my background is all in politics, so I
Oh,
kind of
awesome.
enjoy things that kind of get at that, like what makes a good leader and all of those questions. So
Yeah.
I will enjoy it. We'll see if other
Good.
other fans do, but
Yes, we'll see.
well, thank you so much, Camden. I appreciate you taking the time to talk today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interview. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right, bye.